Coming up on this episode of That Was a Show? Everything's Relative was a show. Before he became known for his iconic role as George Costanza, Jason Alexander made his television comedy debut on Everything's Relative. This odd couple-style show is about two brothers living in a fancy SoHo loft. Alexander plays the recently divorced older brother Julian Beeby, alongside his construction worker and ladies' man younger brother Scott. Together, they navigate the dating scene under the intensely watchful eye of their mother. Julian runs a product testing lab, and their home is always full of strange concoctions for Scott to stumble upon. Brynn, Aaron, and Barry conduct their own research in an effort to understand this sitcom experiment. We grew up during peak sitcom, Seinfeld, Friends, The Fresh Prince. But those shows were diamonds in the rough. This podcast is not about those diamonds. It's about the rough. Some sitcoms were briefly popular in their time. Some were canceled almost immediately. You probably won't recognize most of these, and you'll ask, that was a show?
That was a show?
The podcast about failed or forgotten sitcoms from the 80s and 90s, starring
Brynn Byrne,
Aaron Yeger,
and Andrew Helmer as Barry.
A Radio Gizmo production. Hey guys, how you doing?
Okay, how are you?
Good.
Good. We'll just pretend we didn't see each other last night.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
All right, let's get into this show.
All right, let's jump right into it.
Yes.
Aaron, why don't you tell us about it?
Sure, why not? 1987. Topping the charts were songs like Open Your Heart, Lean on Me, and Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. Sitcoms, of course, ruled television, holding 8 of the top 10 slots in America that year. And 2 years before he would appear in a little pilot known as The Seinfeld Chronicles, Jason Alexander made his television comedy debut as the star of Everything's Relative. It ran from October 3rd to November 7th, 1987. They made a grand total of 10 episodes, of which 6 aired. The concept is simple. 2 brothers with, you guessed it, different personalities live together in a New York apartment. Julian, played by Alexander, is a 33-year-old, recently divorced businessman who does something involving testing products in a lab. Scott, played by John Bolger, is a 25-year-old construction worker. By the way, Scott Bolger is actually about 5 years older than Jason Alexander, not 8 years younger, and you can absolutely tell by looking at them.
Thank you for actually letting me know that, because it was bothering me.
Yeah. According to ads for the show, one's recently divorced, the other's playing the field. So they're both single, and all they talk to each other about is dating. Julian likes to do laundry. Scott leaves things in the fridge too long. They're a real odd couple.
He really does like to do laundry.
Yeah.
It comes up quite a bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that. And the very extended plot in one of the episodes, I don't know if it was the second episode, where there's just mold on everything.
Yeah.
Like it's
To continue, the show also features their strong and overbearing mother, Ray, played by Ann Jackson, Julian's business partner, Emily, played by Gina Hecht, and some sort of neighbor boy who maybe does errands for them, I guess. That's Mickey, played by Tony Natoli. We watched 2 episodes, the pilot, and episode 8, which was written by David Crane and Marta Kaufman, which we chose specifically for that reason.
all right. What happens in the pilot? Tell the listeners.
Okay. With apologies, in the pilot, we meet Julian and Scott and learn that they are brothers who live together. Apparently, Scott dates lots of attractive women, a fact that makes Julian jealous. We then go on to discover that Julian's business partner, who is in fact an attractive woman, is constantly coming on to him, and then we learn that his ex-wife Betsy, played by Kim Morgan Green, is also constantly trying to seduce him back into a relationship as well. Apparently, Mom has possession of some valuable brooch that Julian needs to give to his ex, and she starts meddling in his love life. So it turns out Betsy wants him back, and Julian starts seeing her again, but doesn't want his brother or mom to know, so he pretends to be dating his business partner, Emily. Julian gets jealous that Betsy might still have feelings for the famous talk show host, with whom she apparently cheated on him, and this is what led to their divorce. Scott doesn't really get a plot line, but Mom does job shame him a bunch, so I guess there's that. Also, Julian is always bringing home weird test products, and Scott is always accidentally using them for the wrong things.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, you did a very good job, Aaron, basically summarizing what the entire series is about. Like a lot of sitcoms, there's running gags, and yeah, you did a good job of distilling the greatest hits right there.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
So I guess to start us off, first of all, I'm sorry for making you guys watch this.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because, like, it wasn't good, but, like, I didn't hate it as much as other things. Like, I weirdly enjoyed it. Like, I was groaning the whole time and rolling my eyes, but I actually, like, it didn't feel like torture watching it for some reason. I was fascinated.
Well, that's good. I mean, yeah, okay, it was fascinating. The opening, right from the get-go, the opening titles and music are like the joke from a sketch comedy show version of an 80s sitcom intro. Like, It's what you do to make fun of this format.
Yeah. There's so many, like, get a load of this guy, like, shots where, like, somebody does something silly and the other one catches them.
And the lyrics to the song are a verbatim description of all of the gags you're about to see.
Yeah.
Barry,
Lest you think this show is being meta, it is not. It's just being clueless.
Yeah, this is all done in earnest.
Yeah. Barry, I feel like you need to send that, like, theme song to your brothers, because
yeah,
they might get I'd do anything for my brother, or whatever it is.
There's a lot of things in this show right off the. So I will just mention that I do not share in Brynn's. It was fine viewpoint. It was torture to watch this.
I did not say it was fine.
You're right.
It was bad, but for some reason I was okay watching it.
Yeah, she said fascinating.
Yeah.
I just, like, really early on, like, I got this thing where I was just like, oh my God, Jason Alexander's character is just like an incel. Like, he's just like so angry about his place in the world.
He's
and
so jealous and resentful all the time, even though women are constantly throwing themselves at him. And he lives in the largest lots of sitcoms have people in big loft apartments. This is the biggest, loftiest apartment I have ever seen.
It had, like, Roman columns in it.
Yes.
Like,
it had literal Roman columns.
It feels like that you could strike the set and, like, shoot like a Jesse and the Heartbreakers music video in it, you know? Like, it was
had that
just
vibe.
so oh my God. But yeah, and, like, I find this happens a lot in shows where, like, I think I'm supposed to think, is it Scott is the brother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm supposed to think Scott is like a cad, but he's not. Like, it's one of those things where, like, and we had this in Rachel Gunn RN a few weeks ago, where I'm like, the main character's awfulness distracts from what I'm sure I'm supposed to feel.
Yes.
Where, like, I'm just like, he's such a jerk all the time to everybody around him.
Yeah.
And he never, like, he doesn't like consider the feelings of these female characters whatsoever. Like, they're just little pieces of a game for him, and, like, his brother, who is the ladies' man, seems to be, like, a pretty genuine, like, he doesn't sound like he's running any schemes or anything.
You're
like,
totally right. The brother's pitched as the one who's, like, playing the field, and he's the ladies' man, so you think he's gonna be the inconsiderate womanizer, but no, he seems perfectly decent, at least from the scenes that we get to watch. And the Julian brother, who's supposed to be the more, like, mature, put together one, is like a dick to everyone.
He's so mean to everyone. Like, he's just like, I hate the way he treats his business partner so much. Because like you guys mentioned, like, she's throwing herself at him. And at first you think it's a joke.
But no, she actually is.
But she has serious feelings for him and like consistently brings it up to the point where it's awkward for both her, him, and us. But then you're just like, oh, but he knows this and he just treats it so like cavalierly that like it's just like, ew, come on, man.
Yeah.
You clearly like her as a person. Like, be nicer to her.
Yeah, it's definitely like his whole character, Jason Alexander's character, is very, very off-putting. And we're supposed to like him. Like, we're supposed to be on his side. We're supposed to not like the brother. But honestly, like, the brother's kind of like a lovable doofus. Like, he, like, you know, and he's like handsome and charming. Like, he's not, you know. It's just it's very, very odd. And I like when I was watching it, I was telling Aaron, I was like, you know, he's doing this weird sing-songy Jason Alexander thing where he comes into a room and there's like a lot of like kind of
it's his Broadway background that comes through.
Well, he quite literally in several scenes, it's a reoccurring joke on the show where like anytime he gets laid, he sings show tunes the next morning.
Right.
And like, you know, he's got lots of energy doing that.
Yeah, but there's something about it that I just found really like off-putting, and like I felt like the character needed to have like some sort of neurosis. Like it's weird seeing Jason Alexander playing such a self-assured person.
It's you immediately are like, what's the con?
Yeah,
exactly.
What's happening here? It might work if it was funnier, but like for all the reasons that his mannerisms are great on Seinfeld as George Costanza, they fail in this context. Like those same things of being like sing-songy and physical and like twirling into a room and like drumming on things and like all of those body language things that he does as George that work because that character thinks so little of himself fail because this character thinks so much of himself.
Yeah.
It's really weird, and like I'm sure the audience can agree, like it's just so weird to see Jason Alexander cast in a leading man role. Like, not that he can't lead. Yeah. He can, of course, lead, but to cast him in like a leading man, like he's the heartthrob, he's the, you know, he's the guy everybody wants to be. To see him as that, like it just, don't work.
I think if he were going to be a quote unquote leading man, he would have been better off doing a Drew Carey type role. You know, like the Drew Carey show?
Yeah.
How he was like the lead and he was supposed to be likable and he was like the romantic lead, but he was still that kind of like,
he's so very self-deprecating.
Self-deprecating, and he's like an everyman. And whereas this was, you know, he was supposed to have confidence, but then that confidence would crack when some woman would reject him or he'd feel jealous of his brother, and then he'd get real petty and real like, you know, snarky and like kind of whine, and like it was just like ugh.
I mean, a lot of this show is based in petty jealousy. Like that's definitely one of the driving forces in the show, which becomes really cloying when it's so much of the plot. But also, okay, so we're obviously like focusing a lot on Jason Alexander because the show is about two brothers, but really, like at least
it's
in
about him.
At least in the episodes we saw, it leans more toward him being the main protagonist that we're supposed to side with.
He's the lead. The others are all supporting. For sure.
He comes across as the lead, but also like, so for obvious reasons, we watched this because he's in it and he is the lead. But I would like to take a bit of a step back and look at like the basic premise of the show and the writing and construct of these characters, because there are some structural flaws in the pilot and some conceptual problems with these characters that just, to me, do not work for comedy, at least in like an episodic format where, like on a fundamental level, a character like his needs to be comically flawed, needs to be worse than this type of person would be in real life, needs to have foibles to be funny. So it feels like there's something about the design of this character that doesn't even work in the premise, where it's just like, why are we seeing already within like the first 10 minutes of this show. Like he's supposed to be the character who's unlucky in love, but it seems to be problems of only his own design because women are constantly throwing themselves at him. Like immediately the setup is being completely shredded.
Yeah. Well, I think it's weird because, he is, to use sitcom like terminology, he's the straight man. He is the straight man, but there's anchor. But there's no one bouncing off of him. He's not reacting to anybody else's zaniness.
Well, yeah, the only zany characters are like Mickey.
I guess Mickey's zany, but like his brother is not funny. Like his brother would be a better straight man than him.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because his brother is the more genuine person, and like it's weird. And there's so much sitcom, like so many weird notes in this. Like, why is he a product tester? Like, why does he have like a weird science lab job? Like, just give him like you said, Brynn, like put him in an everyman role, give him a regular job. How much mileage were you getting out of these testing things? Like,
it's really odd. It's because it's like they're supposed to be like inventors, I believe.
No, I think they're testing products from other companies. Like they're product testers.
They're testing products.
So they're hired by these other companies to test the products.
Presumably.
Correct.
But like that gag of him like bringing home weird test products and having those like little conversations with the brother gets old immediately.
Yeah. It's dumb.
Like by the end of episode 1, you're already like, am I going to have to watch more of this gag?
If you want to do that, he has to be doing it intentionally. Like he should enjoy like tricking his brother or something and having it. But just his brother is just so dumb that he just keeps doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah. But the show positions it as the brother being dumb or like bumbling, but really he brings home these test products, none of which are correctly labeled. And it feels like one of the most important parts of your job, if you're running a product testing lab, is to accurately label all of the containers.
It's really weird.
So it's like he's not even good at it.
Yeah.
You mentioned like his mom is always job shaming like his brother. And his brother has like a very steady, seemingly successful construction gig. He is not the one I'm worried about in this pairing. Like,
he seems to like be very happy with his life.
He's
like,
happy, confident.
Yeah, and he lives in that freaking loft, so I guess everything's okay.
Yeah. At no point is it ever suggested that he's like mooching. He's clearly paying half the rent.
Yeah.
Like
the only thing he doesn't know, like, how to do is throw out food or like eat it before it gets moldy. And it's like, I will admit that I don't have that skill.
But like Julian was gone for 3 days. How old was the food that it all molded in 3?
How did it get that moldy?
Yeah. You're part of the problem there, sir.
Well, one of my notes is like the mom is constantly job shaming him. And she even says at one point, like, she specifically goes out of her way to put him down, her own son, for the fact that he like went to college but is now working in construction, and apparently that's terrible. Meanwhile, the other brother, like whatever dumb shit he's doing is admirable.
Yeah.
Like
he owns a business. It's the American dream, man.
I guess.
But wasn't there a reference to Scott owning his business as well? Like, wasn't there somebody who said a line where it's like, oh, how's your construction business or something? And if that's the case, that is really good.
All I know is he works like the high steel. Like there's a reference to him working 40 stories in the air. Yeah. And I'm like, this guy seems cool. Like this is the brother that I want to know out of the two of them.
If he just untucked his t-shirts, I'd hang out with this guy.
Yeah. I mean, on the topic of tucking in, like they did not do Jason Alexander any favors by giving him so many pairs of high-waisted pants that were like tucked in. It was like he had zero torso in this show. Like it was like really awkward.
It's weird because it's like it's the youngest and like arguably like best looking Jason Alexander I've seen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but they're not dressing you right, bud.
No.
Yeah.
No, truly not. Yeah, I don't even know where to begin. There's like a lot to unpack with this show.
Speaking of another little detail, this is something we rarely address, but some of the business that characters do in sitcoms like this. Yeah. So
what was going on?
Okay.
Every scene has 9 bits of business.
Yeah, so this show has like, okay, it's normal for sitcoms to have characters doing little things like eating a sandwich or flipping channels with a TV remote, like little things
That's
that
good
you do.
comedy acting.
Yeah, it's a thing that helps actors
Creates
like
dynamic.
feel like they're physically part of the world, and it's fine. But there was something about the business in this show. The first one that really I found really odd was the blender thing.
Was it the shake that he never made?
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, he gradually adds ingredients to this blender, one by one, really meticulously, puts the lid on it, tightens the lid. He's getting ready to like make this shake, and then they just walk away from it and go on with their day.
What? I never even noticed that.
It's the whole first scene. Like he's
I can
clearly
picture him doing it now that you say it.
Yeah, he's making one of those like shakes that like you would imagine like, it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger
like an
movie
80s
and he's a
shake.
Right.
Yeah, like he's a deadbeat cop
Yeah.
and he's like cracking eggs in it,
Raw
like,
eggs
and a bunch of protein powder, and then he just puts the lid on, screws the lid on.
Yeah, real carefully.
And he sits down.
Yeah, just bails on it. Wastes all those ingredients. And you know what? I know that this is why it happened. They probably thought if he turns on the blender, it'll be really noisy and you can't do that. But this is one of the things that differentiates a sitcom like Seinfeld from a sitcom like Everything's Relative. Because on a show like Seinfeld, they'd say, noisy blender, that's hilarious. Imagine 2 people trying to have a conversation with each other over the loud sound of a blender. That makes for comedy. But this, it kind of walks up to an idea and then shakes its head like, nope, not rolling the dice on this one. and then walks back into like...
Every scene has stuff like this.
Yeah,
every scene has like, like somebody like peeling an apple or cleaning obsessively
food things, I guess.
Tossing clothing.
That's why they're always out of food.
Yeah, and it's why like Mickey, needs to run their errands for them, I guess.
Or another perfect one is the end of the episode where Scott takes a big gulp of this brown liquid from a giant glass bottle, and before he swallows it, Julian tells him that it's not soda. It's some new product they're testing called liquid liver, which, sounds really gross. But like he's holding it in his mouth, and Julian keeps talking about it and smirking and laughing in his brother's face for being so dumb to drink the unlabeled bottle that he left in the fridge. And then it looks like Scott's about to like spit it in his face on purpose. Freeze frame, cut to credits. And I'm like,
freeze frame.
Again, if you had like, I don't know, Kramer or George accidentally take a gulp of liquid liver from a fridge, they would immediately do a spit take, spit it in someone else's face. That's the gag.
Were they just like afraid of cleanup? Like, were they really like afraid
of noise, afraid of mess, afraid of everything?
It's like, they have like really...
They had to return the set.
Yeah, I guess.
Leave the tags on.
Or, exactly. Like they're, or they had like some really, grumpy neighbors in the other studio and like they couldn't make too much noise.
But like the whole product tester thing
so silly.
Should be a setup for physical comedy.
Yeah.
The whole point of that should be, let's see how far these gags can play out.
Yeah.
But instead, it's just like little mundane dialogue references that fall flat and never using any of the gags.
I mean, they did one gag with Emily in the second episode where she drank the coffee that has the extra caffeine and she had been up all night, like cleaning and whatever. It's a lot of cleaning. Have you noticed this? Like a lot of cleaning.
That's why they could do that gag, because it
was cleaning. Yeah.
It was clean.
Actually, it's odd.
Fun thing to notice.
I'm sorry.
A fun thing to notice. Sorry, guys, the cat just jumped up on my lap. Oh, yeah, and knocking down the whole.
We have
rig.
a new junior producer. It's another cat. It's our associate producer.
She's just a production intern at this point.
Yeah.
She's just trying to see where her passion lies. Sorry, very distracting cat. As you guys can see, it was just a tail popped up
In the Zoom chat.
Yeah, and then oh god, fuck knows what I was gonna say. Oh, sorry, cleaning in sitcoms. I don't know if you ever noticed, but people in sitcoms clean constantly.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's to sell cleaning products or if it's just to shame people out there for not cleaning their own home nearly this much, but it bothers me.
Yeah. Yep. It's annoying. Speaking of like the environment where the show takes place, another thing that makes that giant loft ridiculous is the acoustics. There are scenes where I can tell from their conversation in that room that like they weren't even considering how that would affect like microphone placement or audio, because it sounds so reverby and boomy. Like this is being shot on some sort of like giant. I mean, yes, sitcoms are technically sort of like a stage play, but they're not supposed to sound like you're in some black box theater and you're sitting like 48 rows back. Like the mics are supposed to be close to the actors, and it just sounds like this big echoey boomy space, which yeah, a massive 2-story loft with a 20-foot ceiling is going to sound like that.
Let's talk a little bit about Mickey.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Like, what is the deal? Is he their like, personal assistant? Like,
what do we even say about Mickey?
He's only Scott's personal assistant.
Okay.
He's a
Simpsons character.
Yeah, basically.
I'm trying to think of specific examples of this, but this is the type of character you would see a lot in like cartoons where like there's like some toady who like worships the ground that somebody walks on and like does all their stuff for them.
Yeah.
But like we don't ever really get an explanation. He just shows up and they're like, hey, why don't you go get us groceries? And he's like, yeah, right away, boss. And you're just like,
yeah.
What?
It's weird.
He has a very thick accent, like a New York accent. I don't know which New York accent it's
and he's
supposed
got
to be.
like the little leather jacket and he just seems
he's
like
a cartoon, like
he's
literally
like,
a cartoon.
You know what he reminds me of is like that kind of toady, hey boss, what can I get you? But specifically from like the world of Happy Days. Like he'd be the guy who worships the Fonz and is trying to like give him a shoe shine.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. Just weird and off-putting.
Yeah, he's very cartoonish. He's very like, and he'll just like say things like, this, the best things in life are like fast cars. What is it? Like, it's like hot broads, fast cars. And what was the third thing? It was 3 things.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's stuff that he learned down at the local malt shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's really he's a real boy at a time for sure.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't be surprised if there were like an episode where they were like, oh, Mickey's deal. He was like he was like frozen in a cryogenic chamber and was transported here from the 1950s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's odd.
He accidentally tried that toothpaste and it transported his consciousness back from the 50s.
Yeah, basically. And okay, let's talk about Mom.
Oh, Mom. The way she interrogates her sons with this like boss attitude is really strange.
There's also a lot of like weird, like she always leaves the scene where like saying something like kittenish and mischievous, like, where you going, Mom? And she'd be like, I'll never tell. And you're just like, the hell's going on? Why are you constantly like doing these weird things with your kids?
Yeah, and she's like loving to them, but she's also like domineering in this weird, like controlling, strange way where it reminds me a little of this kind of trope that you would see in maybe like a comedy action movie or some sort of I don't know, some sort of crime thriller thing, but like in a silly realm, like for some reason, something like Inspector Gadget comes to mind. But she's like the boss villain woman who has two sons that act as her henchmen. And she's like coming in and taking charge and telling them what to do because like she'd be the one who comes up with the caper and then they have to go like rob the jewelry store.
Yes.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but that's a bit of a stretch.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Like those kinds of like cartoonish.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's definitely a very big performance, and not that there's anything wrong with her performance, because I think the show calls for it, but it's like it's a very like cartoonish again, like pretense. Like it's like she's very, very like overbearing, domineering, and is very she's just like very, very involved in every element of their life. And
mostly Julian's life.
Yeah, mostly Julian's life. She definitely is putting more of an investment in Julian. Like
she has favorites for sure.
For sure. And she's very waspy. Like I get there's like these weird hints of them being waspy, but yet they don't individually kind of put that out there. Like they're very like average and they're like young guys living in Soho, which I guess wasn't hip at that time, was probably, not quite what it is today.
That's what it is. I'm going to cut out my whole theory from before. It was too rambly. That's what it is. It's kind of like there's some sort of wealthy family dynasty thing going on. And it's almost like she's the powerful matriarch of this family. And these are like her bumbling sons that she needs to like
rein in
and corral them into line because she's worried about whether they will like preserve the family legacy and the family. She's the character that you would expect would be saying like, you're shaming our family name. Like she never says things like that, but it's like, that's the subtext.
Yeah.
So for me, she has this problem that every character on the show that isn't Julian has. And it is essentially none of them have internal lives outside of what Julian's doing. It's all like they're all just waiting for him to get home and be like, what did he do?
Yeah. Now I have to say words and interact with him. He's home.
Yeah.
Like, it's really weird.
You're so right about that.
It's like they're all a bunch of robots ready to go when he comes in and activates them. Like even Emily is the same way.
There's a Truman Show thing happening here where they're all just waiting for him to show up.
Well, that'd be wild if like the show actually did last a full season. And, halfway through, we found out that it was like a Truman Show scenario. Then it would make a lot of sense.
Like the writers we're not just bad writers. We're just, we're setting up a long game.
Yeah. Can someone please make a sitcom that is that? Like, that would be amazing.
I'll see what I can do.
So earlier I said that I thought this pilot had weird structural issues. And this is where one of them comes in. Like, we know from even like the poster promoting the show that the mom watching over these two brothers is like a big part of the premise. But she's introduced as a character in the second half of the pilot. And the way she's introduced doesn't initially come across as if she's going to be like an ongoing major player. We know she will be because we knew the premise of the show going into it. But
she's in the opening credits.
She's in the opening credits. Yeah. She's presented that way in all the promotional stuff. But her first scene, like the way that she comes into the plot of the pilot, feels kind of haphazard and comes in a little too late. And even stranger is this thing where, as I described in the setup, Julian is pretending to date his business partner, Emily, so that his mother and brother don't find out that he's actually seeing his ex-wife again. But in the scene where he brings the business partner home to see them and he's going to put on this ruse, he blows it like 10 seconds into the scene. Like there's no business of like actually seeing that play out. He convinces her to come home and pretend that she's the one dating him. And then like 2 lines of dialogue into that scene, he crumbles and apologizes to everyone. It almost feels like a couple scenes were cut out.
Well, it's because that's the sitcom plot. You know, like, oh, somebody's coming, you're gonna, you know, the boss is coming, like, we gotta pretend like we're, you know, this is what's going on.
But they bail on it so fast.
They're like, oh shit, we started this at minute 17 of 21 minutes. We gotta wrap this shit up.
Yeah. Very strange structure. And now a word from our sponsor. Hello, wonderful listeners and fans of this podcast. We want to hear from you. Go to anchor.fm/thatwasashow and leave us a voice message, and we might play it in a future episode. Or email us at thatwasashow@aol.com, our 90s era email address, and we might read your message. Our lines are open, so call right now. And we're back. And then, of course, like the final denouement of the episode where he breaks it off with his ex-wife, and they take this wild gear shift in tone into this like sincere moment between the two of them. This like, I love you, I don't think I could ever trust you line, and takes this swing into drama in this weird way. And you're like, I don't care about either of you. I don't care about your relationship succeeding. You're both strange.
Well, it's weird because like, I just felt that in the performances, the reason I don't care is because they're like, he is not emotionally in the scene. Like he's just, like she's sort of giving it her all. And like, she seems to be having some form of inner turmoil, and like, Jason Alexander is like just trying not to smirk the whole time, and then like it just really falls flat, like real flat. And like it's one of those moments that like kind of like hammers that I really don't like the character, because like she does this, you know, kind of like really like, you know, honest, like, you know, I'm trying, blah 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 blah, and like he can't even really meet her halfway. He's just sort of like, see you later. And then the show just ends.
Yeah. It just ends there.
See you later, sweetie.
The most off-putting thing, though, came very early in the episode. That little high five yes after think faculty.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the most cringy moments I've ever seen in life.
Yeah.
I don't remember it.
It's
like right at the beginning.
Scott makes reference to having dated a woman with a particular first name. I can't remember the name, but how he's dated three different women with this name. Serena.
Yeah.
And then Julian is like, what's the third? And he's like, back in high school. And he's like, I don't remember there being another student at our school named Serena. And Scott's like, think faculty. And then there's a moment where they go, yes, and high five. Like they're both like, yeah, you're such a player. Like there's just sort of this weird exchange.
Which is also weird because you're like, if you're supposed to be 9 years older than him, you didn't go to high school with him.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. They wouldn't have been at high school at the same time.
Yeah.
A lot of it doesn't make any sense. Like it's just, And there was a lot of, I don't want to give specific examples because I think, frankly, I have blocked it out. But there's like a lot of gross, like locker room type talk between them. Like there's like a lot of like talking about like just like deriding women's appearances and like just silly like stuff where it's like not even, you know. And there have been shows from the era that were more mean-spirited that didn't go there. That like didn't get so like jerky. Like,
well, it's just it's lazy writing.
It is very lazy writing. Yeah, that has to be about it. Yeah. The coughing beeper. We should mention that.
The coughing beeper gag was interesting.
And that wasn't even a product that he was testing. This is what...
You're right. That was a thing that she had for some reason.
Maybe they're both in the same industry.
Yeah, well, she like is apparently the ex-wife was some sort of like executive at a beeper company called Beep Beep.
Oh, yeah.
And he had, you know, inspired her to invent a beeper that instead of beeping makes a coughing noise. And then that joke kind of comes into play later and he has to pretend that it's him coughing because somehow
God.
his family.
Yeah, why would they know?
Yeah.
Why would they know?
Yeah, because he was trying to not like have his mom and brother find out that he was seeing her, and when the beeper started coughing, he starts panicking.
Yeah,
and
but
it's like,
why would they know about the coughing
why
beeper?
would they know about that? He could have easily said, "This is a product I'm testing," and of like, panic.
Yeah, he has a built-in simple way of
silly.
Oh, so weird.
As bad as it was, I was actually disappointed that I feel like it could have been a gag that you could have gotten some legs out of multiple episodes with. Like he just always has this beeper that coughs. Yeah. That would have been kind of funny. There's an opportunity in the next episode we watched where like, I don't remember what it was. Maybe somebody coughs or there's beeper or something. I was like, oh, that should have been the coughing beeper.
One tiny little detail I noticed about the set that I actually enjoyed is that in the deep background, there's a framed ad for Drake's coffee cake.
I was wondering if you caught that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's funny. I did not see that.
And the other little side discovery is that, of course, Gina Hecht played opposite Jason Alexander in a much funnier and more compelling role as George's therapist on Seinfeld, culminating in the whole gag with his zipper getting stuck on his jacket. That was great. So it is always fun to see when pairings of actors like worked together before. Anytime I see that in TV shows, that's always fun.
Hey, Aaron, why don't you tell us about episode 8?
In episode 8, Julian starts dating a woman named Sheila, played by Mary Darcy, whom his brother Scott used to date in the past. The three of them hang out together briefly, and Scott and Mary reminisce about their good times together, which makes Julian very jealous. Don't worry, Mom steps in to teach them some valuable lessons about how brothers should never objectify, they call it date, the same woman.
Yeah, I found it very hard to believe that Scott dated that woman because she's has like a very like waspy Republican vibe. Like they didn't seem to be a good match. Like she wore business suits that like were the most conservative business suits, but she didn't seem like she was doing any business ever.
In the 80s, everyone was doing business.
I guess they were. They were all wearing shoulder pads and doing business.
I was going to say, she just needed somewhere to put her shoulder pads.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like very like high neck blazers and like he seems like he would be more of a free spirit, you know? But anyway, I mean, both brothers were like really into this woman and she seemed to be into both of them.
Yeah, she definitely was.
Yeah.
I also thought it was weird that the mom orchestrates all of this. Like the mom runs into her and like is like, who knows what happens because we don't see it. We only hear about it. But somehow it ends up with her like giving the mom or asking the mom to give Julian her number, which is just like, what the write better.
Like I would not do that. I don't know.
Have him run into her. Like, come on.
Yeah, have the guys run into her. That would make way more sense. Like why would this woman try to say like, oh, I want to hook up with your son? Like that's like weird.
Because clearly the mom talks about this with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
There's a much better version of this plot on Seinfeld when Jerry dates George's ex.
When Jerry dates George's ex.
Yeah, what's her name? Oh God, she's great. Oh, I wish I could remember her name. She has the great accent.
Oh,
Jerry.
Right. Yeah. With the sort of Southern Belle thing going on, and she's always rehearsing for some sort of play. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that was funny.
That's the one that like Tawny Katane plays.
Sure.
She was like an 80s it girl.
Okay.
She was in all the White Snake videos. You know, she's always like writhing around on the hood of a Camaro. A sports car. Yeah, exactly. In a White Snake video or some other like glam metal like video.
Okay.
Like, that she was like one of those girls back in the day.
Jerry, you ever take a bath in the dark? I'm talking into the bubbles right now. Call me back.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. It's not her. It's a different woman. There's 2 Southern women.
Better look it up.
I don't know. We've gone off the rails here.
Well, we got to close the loop on this
I
one.
know,
You got to look it up.
Let me look it up right now.
While you're looking that
It's
up.
the very emo woman, because now I'm picturing 2 women. Like there's does anyone have a frame of reference of the episode?
I'm just looking. I'm just Googling it.
Okay.
Wow, she just died.
Oh, that's
Tawny
sad.
Katane, like this week.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's sad. But
4 days ago.
But I don't
Who
think...
appeared in the Bachelor Party, Seinfeld, and Whitesnake video.
Okay, but so the woman, now I'm picturing, there's 2 different women. There's the, she played the actor. She played the actor in that scene.
Yeah.
When she, and then there's the other woman.
She gets the nose job.
Who are we talking about now?
Oh, there were too many girlfriends on Seinfeld.
The one who gets the nose job never dated Jerry.
No. It's a redhead. Like they're both. It's confusing because they're both redheads. But there's there's the woman who's like very emo and Southern, and I'm picturing her in a scene in a car with one of them.
Yeah, that's who we're talking about.
Jerry is conflicted about his relationship with an actress named Isabel, who he finds sexually attractive but dumb and irritating. He likens the conflict to a chess match between his brain and his penis.
Now,
so that's her.
Is it possible that this woman was played by 2 different actors? No.
What? No, this is just, you're just thinking of a different, she's not.
Okay.
She's
just
not the one
confused.
that
Don't mind
But
me.
you were right about it.
Okay.
She was in Seinfeld. She just she does not play the girl that I'm talking about.
Yes, that's what I mean.
I'm so confused now.
This is all staying in the episode, by the way.
Tawny Katane, who has nothing to do with everything is relative, played Isabel, who is an actress that Jerry dates in the episode where remember the chess match, his brain versus his penis.
So Brynn was right. That's what we were talking about.
But does George date that woman?
That's not what I was talking about.
No, that's not what he was talking about.
I was talking about the episode where Jerry dates George's ex. And
so what's that episode?
That one is really early on. That's like season 2. Hold on.
Jerry dates George's ex.
Yeah, man. I just told you, like the Jerry. She is sexy though. Oh, great voice.
But that is the actress.
No, it isn't.
No,
it is the ex-girlfriend. Is the episode, and she is played by.
You're right. I am conflating 2 different.
Yeah, you are.
She is played Marlene. That was the name I was trying to think of. Marlene.
But they have a similar thing where they have like shoulder length, kind of curly red hair. They look very similar.
And do a similar voice.
Yeah.
Tracy Collis.
All right.
Well, this really went off the rails. Cutting in with a quick sidebar here. After our recording session, I consulted with our team of expert fact-checkers, by which I mean I watched the aforementioned Seinfeld episodes, and I can now confirm that Tawny Katane played Isabel, the actor, in Season 3, Episode 9, The Nose Job. She isn't the woman George is dating who gets the nose job. This is the episode where Jerry plays a metaphorical game of chess between his brain and his penis, and she plays the actor who Jerry is dating. But the episode where Jerry dates George's ex is Season 2, Episode 1, The Ex-Girlfriend. That girlfriend is Marlene, played by Tracy Collis. And an additional note is that Tracy Collis was also in Season 6, Episode 7, The Soup. She played Kelly, the waitress at Monk's coffee shop who flirts with George until he tells her he likes the word manure. Here we have a plot that seems to be based entirely on the fact that this woman finds them both equally irresistible.
Yeah.
So again, what is the Julian character's defining trait relative to his brother?
I think the implication...
He wears button-up shirts.
Yeah, but I think the implication is that he has more money.
Like he has more money, but the brother's taller? Like, is that it?
Well, he's much better looking.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jason Alexander.
Yeah.
But it makes no difference because he seems to be just as successful in attracting women as his brother.
Yeah, the whole damn thing is flawed. I mean,
it's very confusing.
Like these women are launching themselves out of cannons at them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
You know, it's like everything from that time. It's like the Al Bundy effect, where all these women are mysteriously throwing themselves at Al Bundy, and he's batting them off with a stick. Like it was
Marissa
just
Tomei
the time.
was into George.
Yeah, exactly. Marissa Tomei was attracted to George Costanza.
That was the point of the joke, because his whole thing was
so
like,
that's how you do that joke.
Yeah, that's how you do that joke, was like, apparently Marissa Tomei likes short, stocky, bald men with quirky personalities. Like the whole joke is that he's shocked at the fact that she, for some odd reason, finds him to be her perfect guy. And once he finds out that fact about her, then it becomes his mission to meet her. Because, like, what are the chances that an Oscar winner who's that beautiful is gonna, for some reason, be into him? So, the whole joke is like how preposterous it is. Whereas here, it's just like those things are happening earnestly and without explanation.
Yeah, like they're taking it seriously. They're not. It's not a joke on the show. Like it's just the women love these guys. They're irresistible.
And maybe that's what this all boils down to, is that everything in this show takes itself very seriously.
Yeah.
It's a sitcom with a silly premise, and there's the silly science lab where he works, where there's all these dials and wheels and tanks and things. You don't know what anything is, some like weird quirky lab, and he's always bringing home these weird products, and there's all these gags, and everything's like jokey, but then they take it all very seriously.
Yeah.
There's very little jokes in their jokey sitcom.
Yeah. He like smiles and laughs at his own comments like a lot. There's a lot of like the character that's very self-conscious, like a lot of like smirking at his brother. There's something about the Julian character that's like always
he's very smug. He's a very smug man. He's very self-assured in his smugness.
Yeah.
I needed to watch a Seinfeld to like use as a palate cleanser to kind of be like, oh yeah, he's like hilarious. And I watched the Fusilli Jerry episode, and it's just like a perfect example of an episode of a sitcom where everything hits, everything's perfect, everyone's hilarious, everything's working. To follow up on our conversation from last episode about Seinfeld being out on Netflix, if you've never watched the show before, the Fusilli Jerry season 6 episode 20, that's a pretty good place to start, because it's
don't you be skipping around.
Hey, when I started watching the show in high school, it was through syndication and everything was all out of order. So all I'm saying is that's a show that just, it's so perfect.
I think my favorite is it the boyfriend, the one where he's like forbidden to see Elaine's colleague, and then she sneaks around to date him because she thinks he's a bad boy.
What are you doing? You don't want to know.
Is this your orthopedic backrest? In the car.
Right.
In the car.
A bad man. A bootleg in a movie.
Yeah.
And the scene with Jerry Stiller. You want a piece of me? You got it!
Yeah. My son couldn't cook up a scheme like this. You're damn right he couldn't. Well, I was just going to say, like, in the Fusilli Jerry, there's so much plot packed into 22 minutes. And just a direct comparison of how much happens in that show compared to episode 8 of Everything's Relative. Episode 8 of Everything's Relative, to reiterate, two brothers both date the same woman, jealousy ensues. That's the entire plot. And I'm not someone who can usually describe things succinctly, but I can describe that plot in one sentence. To explain what happens in the Fusilli Jerry thoroughly would take us an entire episode of our podcast. But in short, every character has a full plot line. There's like Kramer, who makes the Fusilli Jerry like statue of Jerry. There's the whole sex move thing, which becomes a multi-handed plot line between Elaine and Putty, between Jerry and George, between Putty and Jerry. And then there's the thing with George's dad and his move and Estelle and the eye surgery and the ass man subplot. Altogether, there are probably like 8 plot lines weaving their way through that episode. Every single line of dialogue is a new plot turn, and every single line of dialogue is a laugh out loud joke. And then you watch this and it's like, wow, this is all they're doing for 22 minutes, huh? Just Julian's kind of jealous. All right.
I think essentially what you're getting at, if I'm reading between many lines here, is a lot of times when we watch these shows with actors that we really like, it's common for us to say, you can already tell how great they are, how you can already see the glimmer of like their future greatness in these roles. This is not one of those shows. This is not, if you see Jason Alexander in this and you're casting a sitcom, I don't think you look twice at him after watching this show. He's lucky
he got the role.
Yeah, he's got like a weird, less likable Albert Brooks like energy going through the whole thing, and like it's just, this is not a star-making role. Like we've seen so many of these sitcoms where you're like, well, at least Neil Patrick Harris was great in this, but this is not that. This is not that.
Just like the tucked-in shirts. This was not doing him any favors.
It was not.
We know he's talented because we've watched him for 25 years and then we watched this show.
Yeah.
But if you flip those in reverse, oh my God.
Aaron is like...
He's losing it. He's losing
laughing too hard at all this.
Why don't you just describe another full episode of Seinfeld for our listeners?
Brynn?
I'm curious.
Connect
why don't you
this
tell
with
us,
friends.
Yeah, how do we get there?
I mean, it's very connected. Like, there's like at least 3 one-degree connections. So the first one is through Gina Hecht, who plays Emily Cabot on Everything's Relative. She guest starred on Friends, playing Richard's date in an episode. So
there you go.
Yeah, it's the one where it's the episode called The One Where Monica and Richard Are Just Friends. Okay, and then also Jason Alexander guest starred on Friends.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Did he? I
yes.
did not remember that.
Yeah, so the episode is called The One Where Rosita Dies. And it's, it's a later season one. So that's probably why that we don't remember it, because I think a lot of us tuned out after 2000. But like it's a later season and Phoebe is working in a call center, like a crisis line. And he calls in as someone in crisis.
Oh.
And she basically talks him out of committing suicide. So it's kind of a dark plot. But
Wow. Is he on camera or is it a voice?
He is on camera. I have to, I can't picture the episode. That's just I'm basing that on written descriptions online. But anyway,
I might check that out.
Yeah. And then, of course, the second episode that we watched of It's All Relative for this podcast, episode 8, was written by David Crane and Marta Kaufman, who created Friends.
Yeah,
so
worth
it's
mentioning
very connected.
that.
It's very, very connected.
If IMDb is to be trusted, this does appear to be their first credited work.
Yes. Yeah.
Spin us off.
Yeah. Let's do a spin-off. Okay. So we'll start with John Bolger.
Did Jason Alexander ever work again? I don't know.
So John Bolger has had a really long TV career since Everything's Relative, so that show did not slow him down. He was kind of he's interesting though, because he's kind of a soap opera guy. Before Everything's Relative, he had done like a bunch of recurring roles on a few different soap operas, and then after Everything's Relative, he went back to that for a bit. He did Another World, and also did General Hospital, but then he popped up in other types of shows like The Black Donnellys and Sex and the City, Law and Order, and Homeland. So he's kind of one of these guys who just kind of pops in here and there and does like a memorable guest starring role or recurring role. Ann Jackson, who played the mother, as we said, she had a pretty lengthy career before this show and continued to do lots of guest roles on TV throughout the 90s and early aughts, and sadly passed away in 2016. Gina Hecht, that we already mentioned, also had a prolific TV career. The bomb that was Everything's Relative did not slow her down either. She had many recurring roles and guest starring roles on shows like Life Goes On, Friends, as we already mentioned, The District, Glee, and Dave. And of course, she played Dana Foley, George's therapist. And then we get to our friend Jason Alexander. So he followed up Everything's Relative with a couple of guest star roles in 88. But by 89, he nabbed his most iconic and arguably one of TV's most iconic roles, George Costanza. He played George until 1998. And while he was on Seinfeld, he also did a lot of voice work and did small roles in movies like Pretty Woman. So he was very, very busy throughout the 90s. And after Seinfeld ended in 98, he did a lot of live action and voiceover roles since. He has also played himself a couple of times, or cartoon versions of himself, in both Mad About You, the 2019 version, and of course, many guest spots on Curb Your Enthusiasm, which were always very funny.
Oh yeah, they're the best.
Yeah, when he played like an exaggerated version of himself.
Yeah, a version of himself who hates Larry David.
Yeah.
Which is funny because, for anyone who doesn't know, his character George Costanza on Seinfeld is basically like the comedic surrogate for Larry David's voice in that sort of show's world. So like George is based a lot on Larry's personality. Yeah. So to see them like finally years later playing opposite each other as like not getting along, it's really funny.
Yeah. And he also had a memorable stint on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah, that was a great cameo, actually.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah, lest we give the impression that he doesn't have talents outside of George Costanza, Jason Alexander is a very good comedy performer and actor.
Yeah.
This show is not indicative of his capabilities.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll also mention he's done like tons of theater over the years as well, like lots of musical theater. Like he's just, he's out there, just like his mom Estelle after the separation from. He's out there.
No, you can't be out there because I'm out there. And if I see you out there, there's not enough voltage in this world to electroshock me back into coherence. Yeah, we know all these lines.
I guess we should call Mr. Producer, huh?
Yeah, let's talk to our resident expert on things that happened in 1987.
Hello.
Hey, Mr. Producer.
I'm glad you called, my boy.
Well, sure, we said 4:30, right?
We did, but there's something I wanted to talk to you about.
Oh, great. Well, I wanted to ask you about Everything's Relative.
Oh, sure. That Jason Alexander vehicle from the 80s. Wasn't a huge fan of that one.
Oh, no?
No, I tell you, wasn't just the show. In those days, I was just so busy. I barely even had time to travel.
Oh, well, did you have any connection with the production?
Yeah, sure, some. Took some meetings, met the kid. Actually, it was through there that I first met Mitch Hawthorne.
I'm not sure I know the name.
I met Mitch, and he asked me, Anthony, what's your biggest complaint at the moment? And what do I say? I say, Mitch, I tell you, I just can't find the time to travel. Mitch says, what would your dream vacation be? Now, I don't sugarcoat it. I tell him, Mitch, I've been all over the world, and I had never been to a more beautiful place than Lake Buena Vista in Orange County, Florida. It's interesting, he says, because I just happen to have something that I want you to...
Mr. Producer, I feel like maybe we're getting off track here. You mentioned meeting Jason Alexander.
Oh, sure, I've done meetings with JJ. That's what his friends call him.
I really don't think that's true.
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because the last time I met Little J, it was at my property in Lake Buena Vista. They call this place the Sandbank. And let me tell you, Aaron, before I bought this place, I figured I'd never have the chance to own a piece of property in the most glorious place on earth. Now, I know what you're thinking.
What am I thinking?
You're thinking, that sounds so glamorous, but I could never afford a place like that, so why is he telling me all this? But Aaron, my boy, what if I told you you didn't have to pay full price? Most people get, 6 days of vacation a year? So what if you had this place for just that, 6 days?
Wait a minute. Are you trying to sell me a timeshare?
Aaron, you've got it all wrong, son. We don't call them timeshares. What it is an investment in your future happiness. Why, for just a mere 78 big ones, you and the little...
Oh, look at that. It's time to go. Talk to you soon.
Aaron, can you really put a price on happiness?
Well, Mr. Producer was informative as always.
Yeah.
So that was Everything's Relative, folks.
It sure was. It was one of the multiple entries on IMDb with that title.
And cut to credits. That Was a Show is created and hosted by Brynn Byrne, Andrew Barry Helmer, and myself, Aaron Yeger. It's a production of Radio Gizmo in Toronto, Canada. Subscribe, rate, review, and share. Follow us on Instagram and tell your friends about it. That Was a Show?
Radio Gizmo.